It's the thing nightmares are made of.
You know, it's so creepy that I decided to have a bolt put on the door, and I'm having my son sleep in here with me.
Creepy only begins to describe it.
It's like an alternate reality, really.
When she'd get home from work, Fasika Tafara started noticing things out of place in her home.
They were just all open, but what was weird is, so for example, they were open like this, but they were all at the same level.
First, the windows, then lights turned on, her cabinets pulled out.
It's intended to let me know that somebody has been here, essentially, right? So all of the drawers have been pulled out.
Something strange every single day for almost the past month. She finally realized someone has been coming inside.
Are people following me? And then I started to wonder also, well, how do they know when I'm here and when I'm not here?
Then Tafara found this small camera in her 11-year-old son's bedroom. So she took to the internet and started digging. What she found? Something called community or gang stalking. It's an eerie practice aimed at your psyche to make you almost feel like you're going crazy.
It's spooky, and my understanding is that if this is in fact what it is, it can go on for years, you know.
Only you're not. Tafara left her phone recording audio at her house. Listen, you can hear what sounds like people rummaging around. On one, you can hear what sounds like drilling.
So this hole here has been cut into the attic space.
Tafara says detectives have been to the house.
It's kind of like, you know, if it happens again, call us, but there's not much we can do.
Something that makes this even more terrifying.
All right, this video is for anyone in the United States who has been illegally targeted through the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, FISA Section 702. This is Trump explaining exactly what these people have done to us and exactly what he's going to do to stop them. He explains the standard operating procedures that they use that I've been reporting and documenting on since 11/11 of 2017. This is probably the best video I've ever seen in my entire life. Check this out.
And corrupt and to dismantle the deep state and reclaim our democracy from Washington corruption once and for all, and corruption it is. First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively. Second, we will clean out all of the corrupt actors in our national security and intelligence apparatus, and there are plenty of them. The departments and agencies that have been weaponized will be completely overhauled, so that faceless bureaucrats will never again be able to target and persecute conservatives, Christians, or the left's political enemies, which they're doing now at a level that nobody can believe even possible. Third, we will totally reform FISA courts, which are so corrupt that the judges seemingly do not care when they are lied to in warrant applications. So many judges have seen so many applications that they know were wrong, or at least they must have known. They do nothing about it. They're lied to. Fourth, to expose the hoaxes and abuses of power that have been tearing our country apart, we will establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to declassify and publish all documents on deep state spying, censorship, and corruption. And there are plenty of them.
All right, so he's referring to the FISA court, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, FISA Section 702. That's the, quote, secret court that exists that used to be used to target foreign nationals, people who were a threat to our country. In 2013, watch listing guidance was updated, and they started using that court to target American citizens. Basically, what he's talking about is targeted individuals. You've heard the term. You've heard people talking about being gang stalked. Gang stalked is like a slang term for organized stalking and harassment, or cause stalking, which is run by a bunch of our intel agencies. Department of Homeland Security, CIA, FBI, all of them use this with fusion centers. There are, last count, there's around 80 fusion centers in the United States, and when you're put through the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, they rubber stamp it, they lie about you, and then they target you as literally a terrorist and then try to kill you. Right? They try to kill you or get you to kill yourself. They send all of your information to these fusion centers and then compartmentalized groups, neighborhood watch, FBI, InfraGard. They do it through homeowners associations. 400 of the Fortune 500 companies had contracts with the FBI, right? So, grocery stores, the post office, did any store that you go to, you are followed, harassed, staged car accidents, psychological manipulation, trying to get you to think that you have some kind of disease that you're dying from, death threats daily. They teach you to learn their form of communication so they can communicate with you covertly with plausible deniability.
I became a security specialist for SIS, specializing in executive protection, also risk and threat assessment to our clients. Our clients are the companies or the individuals that we contract out with and provide services for. And it was in that context that I became aware of what I describe as a social engineering program and a research and development program that was being carried out by SIS and our clients in Seattle, the Amazon Corporation. And it was through moving up within the SIS hierarchy and working with more and more people as I was assigned to more and more assignments, I became aware of the existence of this program. And then little by little over time, I became aware of the extent of it. And it wasn't long before I realized how horribly out of control it was, how downright evil it was. Once I began to realize that SIS was experimenting on its own employees, my fellow security specialist, I was outraged. I later learned that my company was involved in a larger social engineering program that encompassed the entire city of Seattle. That aspect of the program was experimenting on the homeless population of Seattle, Washington, who were housed in DESC, Downtown Emergency Services Center facilities. And I later learned that they were indeed experimenting with, when I say experimenting, voice-to-skull, hive mind, behavior modification technology that is frequency-based and directed at a targeted individual to basically control their entire person. And it was by moving up even more that I realized that this experimentation was going on against the general population of Seattle. And then just the average man and woman on the street, upper class, upper class, and even the flat-out rich were having this technology used on them without their knowledge. As more and more information and details of the program were made known to me, I became more and more outraged by it. And I spent a long time, because I had many friends within the security company. A lot of these people are great people. They're very good people. Not everybody involved in SIS is directly involved in experimenting on people. They're not all directly involved in gang stalking. I never was. I never partook in that. But I did partake in training that deals with tactics and protocols that are used normally for surveillance and counter-surveillance. But within that is all of the information and the know-how that you need to be able to gang stalk, and that is in fact what they are doing. And so over time, I became outraged, and I tried to play my cards right, wait for the right moment. And when I really just couldn't tolerate it anymore, when I found out just how out of control it was, I decided to object to my superiors in person. But within SIS specifically, what happens is they are experimenting on their own employees. So it's a long story. I'll try to get through it quick. But basically, people are selected from all over the country. We're talking other cities all over America. They are selected for many different reasons. Often it is because they are isolated. They don't have a lot of money, friends, or family. And they also tend to be people that are highly, highly intelligent. The aspects of this technology that they're interested in improving upon have to do with cognitive processes, processing information, and as a result, they want highly intelligent people to be targets of this program. They also tend to target people who are into what I would call alternative research, commonly called maybe conspiracy theories, people that disagree with the government, people that are into researching things like 9/11. Also, they are interested in people that are interested in technology. But they will be organized stock. They will have career sabotage programs run against them to ruin their job. They will have character assassinations campaigns run against them in their neighborhood. They'll be isolated from family and friends as those individuals are turned against them. And they will be isolated slowly and slowly over time using the technology itself, as many of the people freak out understandably when they at first don't know what it is. Oftentimes, they end up going to psychiatrists, and false diagnoses of schizophrenia, manic depression, delusional, paranoid are rendered against this individual. And it turns out that that's a loophole in the law that they are using to take away people's constitutional rights, as once you are deemed mentally unfit to care for yourself, i.e. you're depressed, delusional, paranoid, etc., they use that, the state or the federal government uses that as an excuse to come in and say that they have to care for you. So I would warn all targeted individuals out there, please do not go to psychiatrists and allow them to render a diagnosis against you, because that is a dirty trick they're using to take away the rights of people all over the country.
Under occupational health and safety laws, individuals are being flagged and placed on community notification lists. This is happening without the target's knowledge, and in many countries, these community notifications are being used by corporations and others to target innocent individuals such as dissidents, whistleblowers, the outspoken, etc. In conjunction with these notifications, corporations and others are in some cases using a practice that was used in the former Soviet Union called the psychiatric reprisal. This is used as a means of retaliation, revenge, blacklisting, silencing, or controlling members of society. Once on the notification system, warnings about the targets are sent out to every individual the target comes into contact with, thus poisoning their associations and socially annexing the targeted individual. A full definition is gangstalking is a systematic form of control which seeks to destroy every aspect of a targeted individual's life. Once a target is flagged, a notification is sent out to the community at large, and the target is followed around 24/7 by various communities that they are in. The community notifications will go out to various places: apartment rentals, future employers, stores, and communities where the target visits will all be notified. Masonic lodges, temples, churches, doctors' offices, fire departments, police stations, etc. A covert investigation might also be opened, an electronic means used by the civilian spies and snitches as part of the overt and covert monitoring and surveillance process. Individuals can be flagged, designating them as having a history of aggressive or inappropriate behavior. This notification system will follow the target if they move, change jobs, or visit other areas. It lets the community believe that the target is a person who needs to be watched or monitored. The identity of the person and the nature of the risk must be given to staff likely to come into contact with this person. While workers have the right to know the risks, it is important to remember that this information cannot be indiscriminately distributed. Individuals are being flagged without their knowledge. In many countries, these community notifications might fall under community safety and health laws. It seems that employers, educational facilities, and community centers are in some cases flagging innocent individuals as a means of revenge or controlling members of society. Gangstalking is experienced by the targeted individual as a psychological attack that is capable of immobilizing and destroying them over time. The covert methods used to harass, persecute, and falsely defame the targets often leave no evidence to incriminate the civilian spies. It's similar to workplace mobbing, but takes place outside in the community. It's called gangstalking because groups of organized community members stalk and monitor the targets 24/7. Many targeted individuals are flagged, harassed, and placed under surveillance in this way for months or even years before they realize that they are being targeted by an organized protocol of harassment. What happens during the monitoring and surveillance is very similar to what happened to many innocent individuals in the former East Germany and Russia. Many innocent people in the former East Germany would be targeted by the state, and then their friends, family, and the community at large would be used to monitor, prosecute, and harass them. The same persecutions and harassments are now happening in democratic countries. Once a person is flagged or has a warning marker placed on their file, the community becomes hypervigilant, and within this structure there is a targeted and illegal protocol of harassment that happens. Electronic means are used to monitor, harass, and torture the target. When the target tries to describe what is happening to them, it sounds as if they have had a mental breakdown. The reality is electronic means are being used to make it appear if the target has had a breakdown. The system is the mosquito that is used in the UK to break up groups of unruly people, also known as LRAD. It creates a protective shield of high-pressure complex ultrasonic shock waves. The mosquito device is being considered for banning by the European Union because it infringes on the human rights of children. It produces a power field of ultrasonic shock wave energy. The frequency range is adjustable from 7 to 25 hertz and puts out about 140 decibels of sound. Intended for mounting to vehicles for potential crowd control applications. Also excellent for keeping out pests from gardens, and hearing protection is recommended when in use. Many of these devices are easy to access and almost impossible for an unaware target to describe in a credible manner without sounding as if they have had a mental breakdown.
I'm Dr. John Hall. I'm a medical doctor in San Antonio, Texas, author of The New Breed, Satellite Terrorism in America. The book is about my experience with a female target in San Antonio, Texas, that was the victim of what we think is a satellite-based tracking and harassment system based on directed energy weaponry and electromagnetic weaponry used by the government. My impetus for writing the book was to expose the fact that this technology is being used nationwide and globally in an apparent experimental fashion to harass certain people. This started about 2006, was ongoing with the female victim that I wrote about until her name was changed and she was moved out of the city where she was being targeted. The perpetrators of the targeting were a private investigative group owned and operated by a former FBI agent who hired nothing but his relatives to work for him. We spent a lot of time doing counter surveillance on this group to make sure that we had the correct identities. Once their identities were turned into the police, they then began to target me with some stalking and break-ins into my home. They did victimize me with some stalking and some home break-ins. As of lately, they have fairly left me alone, I think due to the publicity I've gotten from the book and the screenplay that's been written on the book. The group perpetrating the attacks in San Antonio and in other Texas cities has been identified by myself and others independently of me, and is a former FBI agent running a private investigative group. I've never directly approached them, but we did spend quite a bit of money counter-surveilling them, running their plate numbers and making sure that we have legitimate identities. The private investigative group is accessing a government form of tracking technology and electromagnetic weaponry that allows them to remotely track a person, apparently via electromagnetic impulses picked up from their brain, as well as basically torture them with electromagnetic weaponry that can cause increase in heart rate, muscle twitches, heartburn, severe headache, blurred vision, and attacks on the central nervous system.
Now the pattern in front of my house in government gangstalking is noise. Noise is one of the principal harassment tactics in government gangstalking. What is government gangstalking? This started with the Bush-Cheney administration when they changed FBI guidelines and they made anyone able to be surveilled and harassed by the FBI. So who harasses you and surveils you? The people that harass you and surveil you are your own neighbors, people in the community. In other words, what did Dick Cheney do? He created what I call an American Stasi. He got Citizen Corps, which is first responders, neighborhood watch group members, a lot of people in the health professions. Nurses are outrageous for gang stalking. Firemen, police, ambulance drivers. This program has been going on for 2 decades. My gang stalking started in 2006 when a fireman gang stalk neighbor moved in next door to me. He didn't like my mentally handicapped brother and myself, so he used a suspicious activity report to report us. That's how they do it. Back in the day of Bush Cheney, suspicious activity reports were used by first responders to target people, and they started this government gang stalking program.
My personal experiences with a noise campaign, I want to talk about a little bit about that. The one I want to talk about most is the one that made me actually realize that I was a targeted individual. After experiencing so much harassment in Las Cruces, New Mexico, where I was living at the time for a while, I decided I was going to go to Houston just to get away for a while. I had several friends in Houston. That's where I used to live and where I used to work. So I went to go visit my friend Kimberly Snag, and while I was in Houston, I was staying in Kimberly's mom's house, which is in 5th Ward, a real quiet neighborhood, mostly old people, residential area. But while I was there, every 10 minutes, cars would be flying down the street, just flying down the street, making at rapid paces, making loud noise. And about every 30 minutes or so, I would hear car horns, like people blowing their car horns. And the goal was obviously to keep me under the noise campaign and not really get to relax. And the strangest thing, and this is the thing that really piqued my mind to, hey, there's something more going on here. This is kind of crazy. Behind the house, I kept hearing this strange cock-a-doodle-doo noise of like a rooster. But it was the same cock-a-doodle-doo without any variation to it. So it was obvious that it was like a machine and it wasn't a real rooster. And on top of that, it was like from 2 to, it was nonstop, but I noticed it when it was like from 2 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon, which is kind of atypical for a rooster to be crowing nonstop from 2 to 4 in the afternoon. And this went on for several days because I stayed in Kim's mom's house for like 3 or 4 days, and it went on for several days, the cars and the rooster and all that. And that's the thing that really made me realize, you know what, something more is going on here than, you know, me just having these bad experiences in Las Cruces. And when I was in Houston, people continue to follow me around in like stores and stuff like that too, and really make their presence felt. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. Some of the other noise campaign experiences I had when I was in Las Cruces, my neighbors were constantly making noise. I lived in this apartment complex, Quail Ridge Apartments, for a year and a half, and I never had any issues with noise. But in the last few months that I was there, it was constantly noise around me. My neighbors were constantly playing loud music, constantly talking loud and screaming and stuff like that. And one particular night, the neighbor above me was playing music really, really loud. So I didn't want to be that neighbor that complains on everyone. So what I did was I just put some earplugs in my ear and tried to nestle in and go to sleep. Shortly after I put these earplugs in my ear, my bed actually is on the wall adjoining one of my neighbors, the neighbor that was behind me. And the headboard is literally on that adjoining wall. As soon as I put the earplugs in, I started hearing these extremely loud sex sounds. Now, mind you, I've lived here a year and a half. I've slept in my apartment a year and a half, and I've never heard any noises come out of this apartment, sex or otherwise. But on this particular night, well, I'd heard for those few months, I heard music and stuff like that, and loud talking and screaming. But on this particular night, as soon as I put the earplugs in, these loud sex sounds just started coming out of nowhere. So that kind of let me know, okay, this is part of this stupid harassment that I'm experiencing.
It's in order to make you look bad and then record you from that camera on the front of your phone.
Right.
My neighbors would tap on the walls at very specific times just to kind of annoy me, just kind of harassment.
Right.
And then it was basically months and months of conditioning.
So this isn't really like a person hiding behind a bush spying on you. This is covert, but also very out in the open. It's meant for you to know they're stalking you, but for no one else around you to know, right?
Exactly.
So can you expand on that?
Yes, so basically what they do is they use a formula called NLP.
I've never had anyone just say exactly what I wanted them to expand. That's funny. Go ahead.
So basically they use something called NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. So for instance, say you walk outside, right, and you go into your car and somebody walks by and they're clicking a pin and they're looking at you kind of weird. You're like, okay. You shrug it off. You go to the store, grocery store. You're buying groceries. You come out to your car, and you got a lady pushing a cart, and she's almost runs into you, and she's clicking a pin. You're like, wow, that had to have been a coincidence.
Right. It's almost like Pavlov's dogs, like you're conditioned.
Yeah. So now you're on your way home, right? You're stopped at a stoplight, and you got a guy holding his arm out of the car, clicking a pin. Now you've just been sensitized to that
Right.
pen.
So to the average person, they're not going to really think when they see one person clicking a pen that means anything. It'll make you look crazy. You'll say to your mother, "Hey, that guy's clicking a pen," but you're the only person that knows. You saw 2 other people that day clicking a pen at you, right?
Exactly. So basically, it's an everyday stimulate that they use on you. It could be anywhere from, in the very beginning, they condition you to a protocol. They try to say you're guilty of something.
Now, a lot of people are going to, I hate to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
I know we have a limited amount of time, and I want to make sure you get everything out you want to say.
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to say why, and a lot of people are going to say who. Those are really difficult questions, right?
Yeah, those are very difficult questions.
Because the different,
There's different organizations that are a part of it. So it's kind of, since it is a covert operation, it's hard to pinpoint who's actually doing the targeting.
It's kind of like a vicious circle because you don't know what the end game is. It's difficult to prove or pinpoint, so therefore people say it's not happening, but it is.
Exactly. The perpetrators know that it's happening, and so that's why I took up activism, because if I can inform my perpetrators, they know what's going on, but they're told lies and disinformation, and whenever you present them with the correct information, they realize what they're doing is wrong.
Once you understand that this is a program that is funded by taxpayer dollars through the Department of Justice in part, and that those funds are doled out under community-oriented policing through grant money. And then we have to understand that who is running this program on a local basis. That's going to be your chief of police and or your local sheriff, respectively. That's that's the bottom line. They're the chief law enforcement officers of that city and county, and then the next falls into the attorney general for your state, which they are in fact the chief law enforcement officers of your state. That is where you begin. How do you connect the dots? One of the best ways, many victims have made complaints and then be gaslighted by law enforcement, and somehow they become the criminal. This is old hat. This is how the program works to criminalize the victim, to make the victim look as if they're suffering some type of psychosis or they've done something wrong, and therefore they need to be either charged, ignored, dismissed, marginalized, or what have you. And they are absolutely punishing citizens for crimes they have yet to commit. This is their predictive policing program. Each community or each municipality, county, they have their own pet names. They're given this leeway to cloak what they're actually doing. But it's all the same deal. It's a very organized national program. And the logistics and the data and all this is made possible through Department of Homeland Security fusion centers. They fuse all this data together, hence the fusion center. People ask, well, this for innocent bystanders. Well, if they did something wrong, that they hadn't been arrested, why aren't they being charged? Well, one of the answers is, well, we're doing it a different way. Through our community-oriented policing program, we're discouraging this behavior X, Y, Z, and you fill in the blanks. In other words, what they're saying is we have developed a plan successfully to circumvent due process.
Gang stalking has changed, y'all. See, while we was on curfew, on quarantine, on lockdown, while we was in the confines of our homes, there were people operating under the shadow of darkness, operating in the heat of the night. And they was putting up these towers. And since they put up those towers, the gang stalking program has changed dramatically. Now, for those that are not familiar of what gang stalking is when people collectively come together under one accord and target groups of people or individuals. All right. Now, you could check up government files like COINTELPRO, various organizations within the CIA, organizations that dismantled the Black Panthers, organizations that planted agents within the civil rights movement, within the Nation of Islam, so on and so forth. This is information that is tangible. You can look it up. You can research it. Study to show yourself approved. But anyway, the whole spying techniques have changed. Before 5G was put up, you had assessment task force groups that were tasked with the duty of actually watching people. I'm talking about making street theater against people. Basically assessing them, pricking, prodding at them, seeing what irritates them, doing things to make them psychologically unstable or seem to be psychologically unstable. And this is very real. It's a movie I want y'all to look up called Rosemary's Baby. In Rosemary's Baby, it gives you a good idea of how this kind of works. You have cities, towns, states, various organizations that have various towns that have secret societies within the town. And I'm talking about the mayor, governor, everybody's involved. What do you think goes on in these Freemason lodges? There's a great deal of secrecy. But you know how it is. What's in the dark will be brought to the light.
I was eventually offered a place in the syndicate. The syndicate was presented to me as a kind of fraternity, a Masonic-like mutual profit organization with strong police-like overtones. He said it's a Masonic-like mutual profit organization with police-like overtones. I was told that I was helping to build a better society. However, I have never been given any of the advancement opportunities I was promised. The advancement system of the syndicate is a slippery slope. They make you give up your security privileges, so eventually all of your communications are watched. So if you're in the program, people in the program itself will be watched and monitored. And they'll be gang stalked as well because you sign up for that. So they make you give up your security privileges. So eventually all of your communications are watched, which is why I had to compose this email offline where they can't see me and sent it via an internet cafe. He said you have to attend meeting after meeting of mind-numbing pledges and chants. The promise is that if you sign up or if you sign a contract giving up your personal liberties for the group and you are genuinely innocent, then you will be promoted. I have only been promoted once to the rank of manager, and I don't feel as though it was a rewarding experience. Worse, you are never allowed to leave because they think that you will give away secrets. Leaving is only permissible with a special contract that permits the syndicate to destroy your credibility. So if you leave, you sign a contract that you allow the syndicate to discredit you. So they could say anything about you, that you're, a rapist, that you're a child molester, that, you're anything that will be discredited, that you a drug addict, a alcoholic, or you're anything that will discredit a person is what you sign up for. Is it what you sign up to allow the syndicate or the program to do? So he said, leaving is only permissible with a special contract that permits the syndicate to destroy your credibility. So usually they make sure that the most attention any secrets that you reveal gets is from a crackpot UFO magazine, or they diagnose you with schizophrenia. See, that's being diagnosed with schizophrenia is how they completely discredit your sanity. So he's insane. He has no idea what he's talking about. Look, he's been diagnosed with schizophrenia. There are other problems. If you have children, you have to send them to an education to education and syndicate-owned schools. If you have a wife, you have to report on her. Allow her to be spied upon, and be prepared to target her if they decide to make her into a TI. So when you're in a program and you have a wife and she's not a part of that program, she's apt to become a target because she's amongst you, and they don't know what type of information you'll expose to her, so they have to watch her as well as watching you. So you have to allow them to spy on your wife if you have a wife, and be prepared to make her a TI if they give you the order. She's to be targeted and she's to be watched. I'm still not sure precisely what it is trying to do. It depends on the person selected and who initiated the campaign. There are also different groups doing this that are not necessarily connected and whose motivations are different. To everyday citizens, it presents itself as a group trying to monitor terrorists or any other kind of flavor of the month undesirables like gays, communists, witches, and drive them out. To other people, it's a Rotary Club, a Chamber of Commerce type operation. To others still, the most twisted conspiratorial minds, it is an organization that pulls the strings behind everything. To the Puritans, it's a cleansing force. To the deviant, it is a gang of other deviants where everything is permissible. Each branch recruits its own instead of people just joining a common pool. This keeps the work separate and stops people from finding stuff out that they shouldn't. My branch is the scripting, observation, and execution bureau, or the theater, as it is popularly known. And by execution, I mean the execution of orders, not the other kind. So he's not talking about my branch deals with the execution of people. No, we deal with the execution of orders as far as street plays and writing the script, writing the script up. We do the work that the majority of people with any knowledge of gang stalking will be familiar with: pestering and scripting minor incidents. The theater is actually divided into two sub-branches: scripting, orchestration officers, or playwrights, as they call themselves, and field officers, or thespians, as we call ourselves. So you got the playwriters, then you got the actors, the thespians. And we have the most variety in our recruits. Popular sources are the police, the fire department, the zoo, the technicians of any kind, but we recruit from all places. Most members are neighborhood watch types, not official neighborhood watch, but concerned people. Ironically, we make sure that we do a lot of good just to get some credibility. XXXX likes to help vulnerable people like abused women, women with cancer, mentally ill people, victimized minorities, etc. Then recruit them for his hate campaigns. If a person is a key person, like a friend of the target, he will often victimize the person himself to soften them up, claim that the target did it, and then use that to recruit them. He would recruit somebody's friend by, slander, or, playing the blame game, or saying that, the person they're targeting did something to them. So, hey, man, you might as well join with us in order to, target him. Then there's the Bureau of Authority, aka the money bags. They don't actually control the syndicate, but they have all the right jobs and connections. A job might have control over the judicial process, but he will answer to a superior in the syndicate. Psychiatrists belong here too. Like, psychiatrists are used, to rule you mentally insane, or to say that you're mentally incompetent. You have no idea what you're talking about. So once you have a professional diagnosis of a mental disorder, it's anything goes from there. He's crazy. He don't know what he's talking about. He's just so, like, they belong in a part of that that group with the judges, the police, the firefighters, you name it. Anybody that's somebody. The technician, the Bureau of Technicians, whatever. The money bags are so called because they raise a lot of money. It would be suspicious if big corporations funded groups like this, but they can invest money into front groups like government-funded anti-hate networks, which they use to actually incite hate. See, like government-funded anti-hate networks. Anti-hate networks, which they use to actually incite hate. So when you have like the Black Lives Matters and things like that, these are their groups used to lure in people that feel, a certain type of disdain towards a certain treatment. So they use them to lure or incite other hateful avenues or channels for you to engage in. So that's what they do. And this is one thing that I knew that they were doing from, this is an old practice. Even with the Black Panther Party, all these parties, all these groups, they were all used, to lure people in. They can disguise you as whatever, but as long as you might have some sort of feeling towards that, they know that, okay, he feels like that. So that's one, because they know their people from your people. So they can dress me up in, a straight up revolutionary regalia as part of them, but they can have me being the one that lures other people in that aren't associated with them to target them because they feel that type of way. You get that set up? Normally, harassment is organized under several action policies. If a target isn't an enemy, a standard policy is enforced. Low-level organizers, the aforementioned playwriters, play around with the target for a while and rotate crews. Like, they play with you, then, they rotate the crews around, like they rotate the actors around. While the individuals change, certain other things do not. So it's easy to identify these crews. When a target is an enemy, the policy doesn't immediately change, but orders filter down from high-level organizers, usually the Supreme Council, which direct thespians to provoke the target or a similar action, and money bags to crack down on them once they get in the way of the system. This is called mincing, because the thespians lure the meat. It's like minced meat. They lure the meat by making it complain or fight back into the mincer. So they lure people into fighting back at them. So that's the way that they become the enemy. Come on, fight back. Yeah, say that. Yeah, come on. So that's what it is. Matter of fact, in one of my cases, I had the girl. I knew she was the target. I always tell you about her because it's obvious, especially when you're dealing with a person with eyes to see and ears to hear. I see what's going on. So she was sent to me as, you know, a damsel in distress. But then later on, you flip, and then you pick fights with me, and then try to get me to fight, and then say I'm calling the police. So these are things of that they would do. They would lure you into getting out of your character. And once you get out of your character, now they have ways to crack down on you. And a thing about her was, you know, she was associated with Garfield, New Jersey, which is indicated that once you go in that city limit, the police force and everything in it is Masonic owned, is Masons own the city of Garfield. This is one of the reasons why, you know, Bergen County is a rich country, or one of the richest nations in the world, is because they're ran by, you know, secret societies and you know, the people that own the money. So she was from Garfield, and when you go towards the Garfield Police Department, you know, because I don't had a lot of run-ins dealing with the program and not knowing the extent of the program. So the whole police force knew her, you know, but knew her as somebody that was crazy. You know, maybe she didn't know that she was being used by the program, but she was, because her mother was married to a Mason. Like, her mother was married to a Mason. Her ex-husband was a Mason, so they're familiar with the program. And one time I said, you know, it's about, you know, the people involved in, you know, playing with me. And I started naming people like, yo, such and such. And I was like, yo, Masons. And when I said Masons, she raised her eyes open like this. She was like looking this way. And I was like, yo, they Masons. And she said, you know?
People riding around with one headlight. I'm just not understanding this, right? So I found this guy named Nappy Head Roots. I see his channel, you know, and he has so much footage of this same shit. So I'm like, wait a minute, okay, wait a minute, hold up. You know, and so I'm listening to his videos. I'm asking shit like, what's a handler? Like, what is a handler? What's a perp? Like, I don't know none of this shit, nigga. I'm not even used to no shit like this, dog. Like, what the fuck, you know? So slowly but surely, it took years, you know, for me to finally understand what was really going on. But at the same time, you know, just watching his videos and clicking other, you know, people's channels that was commenting under his videos, and some of them had videos too of the same thing. And it's like, okay, you got this person right here, you got this person, you got this person, and these people over here, all these people seeing the same stuff that I'm seeing. What is this, you know? And it's not something you can talk to your family about unless they're going through it, because either they're gang stalking you too, or they just don't understand, you know, because they probably getting gang stalked and don't even know it, you know. So yeah, when I found Nappy Head Roost channel, I'm like, okay, shit, this is what this is, you know. And it was a scary time for me, because it's like, damn, bro, like, my own government would do this shit. And I've always been like patriotic type shit, you know, like, may my aunt rest in peace. She introduced me to like so-called conspiracy theories. She introduced me to things like that, and I was always able to see stuff from the other side of the lens, you know, from the other side of the coin. Now, I used to think like everybody else, you know, but once my aunt woke me up in like my early 20s, I was able to start seeing like, okay, well, you gotta have a good amount of skepticism. You gotta be skeptical. You can't just be believing everything. I'm at that point with this gang stalking shit, like, it ain't no point to film these motherfuckers no more. I refuse to let me take out my camera and film this shit. Let me take out my camera. I gotta show this shit. Look what I'm going through. All it does on the internet is just make you look insane like they want you to. They know what's going on. They know what they doing to you. Everybody on YouTube watching, either a perp or a targeted individual. I mean, that's the line in the sand right now. It ain't no in between. It ain't no in between. Either you being targeted or you're gang stalking. That's just what it is right now. And you might be asleep to the fact that you being gang stalked, but you're gonna end up waking up, you know, Or you might know that you a gang stalker. You know, you know for sure you a gang stalker. You know for sure you out here gang stalking people, man. They want you to fall into the trap. And you can very well fall into the trap. I mean, that's prophesied. Even some of you will be murdered. You know, you will be killed. You know, with this gang stalking shit. So you gotta stay vigilant, dog.
Many more are understanding this didn't just start a couple of years ago, or when they voted the wrong way on something, or when they raised their hand at the wrong moment when no one else did, or when they got fired from their job, or some inciting incident that you could say, oh, that's normal. This happened. Then the next thing I know, I was stalked. Now they're starting to understand. Many of them that have been trying to document their experience and having a kind of a hard time about it, and getting people to pay. Yeah, people pay attention and they view it, but it's almost like voyeurs. Right? And who knows who the bulk of these people are? They could be your enemy for all you know. But they're recognizing that the targeting didn't just start 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago. It started from the beginning. It was more subtle. It was not as, it didn't seem so much like an emergency or like, some kind of apocalyptic event or some kind of awful thing that where these setups keep occurring one after the other and you just can't get out. I mean, I've been through some pretty elaborate, I'd say very expensive setups, and, with a housewife, think a whole, movie set that you don't, that's artificial, that sort of thing, where it's all just one big spy network on you, where there's no way out. And, the dangerous thing, the other thing that ties a lot of these vids together at this point, not only did the targeting begin long, long ago, and I mean I can tell you when it started, but I mean you're not going to believe me unless you're on the spiritual path. You won't understand. And they're starting to realize that the whole point of the targeting is their death. It's not this ongoing torture. There is an end point called death. And the first degradation, which is that's Satan. Satan wants to degrade humanity, degrade people, and feed off the degradation, and then the death, the sacrifice. And it's all being done by people that are serving the greater demonic community that is looking for that degradation and that harm and that trauma to feed off of, and then of course death being a blood sacrifice to Satan. And people have to realize that even if they don't understand that language I just said, they're more secular kind of people, it doesn't matter what you think. That's what they believe. That's what they're following, because when someone dies, when someone is degraded, they get credit, right? They get paid. When someone dies, they get paid. They get a pop. They get a benefit. And they're addicted to the degradation and addicted to the bullying and addicted to hurting other people for their own sustenance. And that's the satanic way, if you like. Don't look for them out in the woods somewhere with an altar. You are their altar. You are the commodity that they're harvesting.
Surveillance State.
Tide. No, not your favorite detergent, but something much more terrifying. Because keeping your white squeaky clean now means making sure terrorists, or suspected ones, or people suspected of being friends with suspected ones, are on a list. TIDE stands for Terrorist Identities Data Mart Environment. Yes, the Data Mart. Your one-stop shop for all things terrorist-related.
All well lighted for selection.
The list is lovingly tended to by the National Counterterrorism Center, and even more specifically by a super secret unit called the Directorate of Terrorist Identities. Oh, Orwell, you novice. According to classified documents that The Intercept got its hands on, 1 million people, including about 15,800 Americans, are caught up in Tide. What does that mean? Well, Tide feeds into various watch lists, including the terrorist screening database, which in turn feeds into a no-fly list and a selectee list. When you're on the aptly named selectee list, you get even more screening at the airport. Joke's on them though, because you stopped wearing underwear 5 months ago. Tide also feeds into watch lists for the State Department, Homeland Security, and the FBI. You too could be an anemone in the Tide pool, which is actually checked by police and some employers. That means you could get arrested or lose a job opportunity if you're on Tide. So what might Uncle Sam have on you? Well, for 144,000 people of the 1 million on the list, the government's got facial images, iris scans, fingerprints, DNA strands, and other stuff even stalkers don't want. Basically, Big Brother's patting people down without them knowing it. They get this stuff from driver's licenses, handwriting samples, and even from your friendly local law enforcement. If you're thinking, well, I'm not a terrorist, so what do I care? Consider this. You can get looped into Tide for posting something deemed suspicious on Facebook or Twitter. Looks like you should have avoided that flame war about Guardians of the Galaxy. You can also get on it if you happen to know someone who's a little terroristy. Or you might just be unlucky. Like if you live in Dearborn, Michigan, population 96,000, which somehow has the second biggest concentration in the US of people on the list. Surely that has nothing to do with the town having the largest percentage of Arab Americans in the country. No. Other big cities for Tide: New York, Houston, San Diego, and Chicago. 900 records get added to Tide every single day. And Obama has become the no-fly lister-in-chief by increasing that list tenfold to 47,000 people, surpassing terror fighter extraordinaire W. But here's a question. Does it even work? As Edward Snowden pointed out, we're just making the haystack bigger and bigger in a hunt for a few needles. Not to mention the only thing going out with this Tide could be our civil liberties.
These people know exactly what they're doing. It's been reported in mainstream news, and it's all over YouTube. Just look up organized stalking or gang stalking. Targeted individuals. This is organized crime done all around America, and they know about it.
This story on our website, kcba.com. New tonight, police call it bullying on steroids. We're talking about gang stalking, but it actually has nothing to do with the gangs that you first think of. South Coast News reporter Candace Wynn learned more about the trend and how it's getting more dangerous because of the internet.
It makes me feel afraid.
Lawrence Gazzino claims his neighbors are gang stalking him because he plays loud music late at night and is outspoken. He said for the last year and a half, he's been systematically followed by a group of people. At one point, he said they climbed on his roof to harass him. Gazzino said he's developed a paranoia that's devastated his relationships with friends and, worst of all, family.
That's the worst part of it. If it was me, I would take action.
Santa Cruz Police Lieutenant Larry Richards said police are becoming more aware of gang stalking because of cyberbullying. But what is gang stalking?
Basically, the victims could be driving their car or talking on their phones or walking the streets when a group of people try to systematically terrorize them.
Richards said gang stalking is nothing new, but new technology is making it more common.
Gang stalking itself, they have elevated themselves to technology. So this is something that's been going on before the age of Facebook, Twitter, those other social websites. They just now have gone into those areas.
Gazzino said he's proof that the problem isn't just online and that it can hit too close to home, a home he plans on leaving because of gang stalking.
I want to be able to go to the tennis courts and play tennis or play ping pong without people following us everywhere. It's just nerve-wracking.
I'm Candace Wen in Salinas, your Central Coast News.
If found guilty of gang stalking, a person may face criminal, conspiracy, and stalking charges, all of which are felony charges in California.
Does any of this sound familiar to you?
Here on 5 News, we've told you about different kinds of bullying that goes down in schools.
That's right, but bullying doesn't just affect children, it can affect us adults as well. Aaron McPherson talked to a group of people today who shared their story. Aaron, what did these people tell you?
I met 3 people today who are victims of adult bullying, or as they refer to it, organized stalking. 2 of them are from Pennsylvania, but were in the area for their support group, which helps them get through their daily struggles of people constantly putting them down.
We feel as though there is a great abuse going on, not only in our country, but across the world. This is a global problem.
John and Terry are friends from Pennsylvania who have been living in fear for years.
I was inundated with harassment, just absolutely inundated with it. I would be told what I did that day, what I did the day before, where I went, what I had to eat, what I was wearing currently, where I was sitting in my apartment.
Some of us that are single people that live alone are harassed in the community, the hacking of our electronic devices, computers, phones.
These are just 2 of the many people in the world who are victims of stalkers and bullying.
It's totally immature. It's like 10-year-old on the school play yard bullying, but yet it's like on steroids with adults, and it goes so much further than that.
People who suffer from this lose money from changing locks, fixing computers, or even moving.
Just a slow takedown of a person's life over time. I had a respectable career, and I was married, and I had a home, I had cars, typical thing, set up, and now I don't have a whole lot left in the world.
Terry and John told us they have gone to the police with this information, but apparently they lack the evidence needed for a case.
I actually took the computer, I threw it in the dumpster, which is a terrible thing to do because the hard drive and everything was in there, and I had tons and tons and tons of things on there that probably would have been helpful.
We are trying to gather evidence that we can that things are going on.
So why do people do this, and what can be done?
It seems to me that they enjoy being a part of this. We need laws to be passed. We need laws to be upheld. We need ethics to come back into our lives.
Luckily, Terry and John have found support groups that help them get through day-to-day life.
Important to have that connection with other people going through this.
Can't describe what it would be like, what it has been like to talk to somebody who understands this, and then to find out there's people all around the country that are going through this, and I've made so many friends now because of this, and it's been the difference between being able to keep going and not.
Terry and John said hopefully by coming forward, people will be more aware of this problem. For 5 News, I'm Erin McPherson.
Oh yeah, and the doctors know about it too. They know exactly what's going on in your life. No, you're not schizophrenic, paranoid. You're being gang-stalked.
Well, maybe you sensed it, that feeling that you're being watched. Well, the state has laws against stalking on the books, making it a felony.
What if police don't recognize it? And what if it's a complete stranger who's bothering you? Tonight, Joe Conger and the I-Team investigates.
Cynthia Verbeff is moving. Her home, she says, has become a house of horrors.
I feel that I've lost my mind, I've lost my life.
Incident reports from law enforcement tell the tale. Numerous break-ins at the address, vandalism to her car, her motorcycle, her computer. Verbeff believes she's being targeted.
Everything, they just went through everything.
But sheriff's detectives had little to go on because the vandals, though often destructive, stole nothing. Even from her portable safe drilled into and torn apart, the contents, the jewelry, remained untouched. Verbeff says her troubles didn't start until she met these 2 men. One would become her ex-boyfriend, the other was his partner in a San Antonio pain clinic, Dr. John Hall.
Very first time I met him, we went to his house on 4th of July, and he told me that because I was already there in his house, I would be the next victim, that I was going to be stalked.
Verbeff found the doctor's prophecy to be correct. She suffered months of oddness.
Coming in through the front door, and I touch the doorknob, and it just falls into pieces.
Lights left on, doors open, furniture moved, her clothes dryer disassembled. Her friends say they noticed the strange happenings. They tell the I-Team they even witnessed a gas oven left turned on.
As soon as you walk in the house, you'd smell gas in the house. So the whole house smelled from gas. So immediately turned it off and opened up the doors, but I mean, that thing doesn't just turn on by itself. And they've been running for a good length of time.
Or the time Verbeff and a friend say they were stalked at a mall.
I saw him following us to several stores, and I would see the man close to us, looking at us.
The girls had the presence of mind to snap a photo with their phone. Verbeff says all these happenings culminated in an assault. The 39-year-old believes someone drugged the food in her home and returned later to rape her.
I know something happened to me because a woman knows.
She filed a report and was briefly hospitalized with signs of sexual assault. Dr. Hall says what Verbeff describes is known as gang stalking. Indeed, he writes about it in his book, A New Breed, Satellite Terrorism in America. Verbeff is not alone. Others in San Antonio have contacted the I-Team and described similar types of occurrences.
The urine arsenic is above normal. We shouldn't have arsenic.
Linda Johnson says someone poisoned her water supply with heavy metals in northwest San Antonio. Then there's her story about the bracelet that went missing, then reappeared. Police, she says, have stopped listening to her. And like Verbeff, she too believes she's been sexually assaulted, although she never filed a police report.
I've gone to doctors many times, and I've been to the Rape Crisis Center for counseling, yes.
Many of these so-called victims of what Hall describes as gang stalking meet up on the internet, finding comfort and information from others who say they too suffer from electronic stalking, mind control, and even rape. Loosely defined, gang stalking is where organized groups target and harass unwilling victims to the point of paranoia, leaving the victims to deal with skeptical family members and skeptical law enforcement.
This isn't stalking done by a former spouse or former boyfriend or someone that you know that's disgruntled at you, but stalking that's being done by total strangers in an organized fashion.
And some internet links take you here to the book mentioned earlier, written by Dr. John Hall.
The book is fact. It's not a book of fiction. What I've wrote about is an isolated story here in San Antonio.
Dr. Hall says it is a story about himself and the harassment and rapes his ex-girlfriends allegedly suffered beginning in 1996. Dr. Hall believes the people behind it are well-organized operatives using government satellite technology to terrorize him and other victims.
All voicing the same complaints: organized stalking, weird electronic disturbances going on in their homes. Most of the women are complaining of drugging and sexual assault. So it's a big national problem.
Verbeff bought the book, and what she read, she says, caused her stomach to turn, because within the chapters in the story, she found similarities to her own situation.
I pulled out the book and I started reading, and I'm like, oh my God, it's exactly what's happening.
It's like turning the pages of your own story.
Everything.
Remember the doors, windows, even the clothes dryer taken apart? Page 35, third paragraph, talks about reassembling appliances. The drugged food and rape? Page 52 talks of concealing Rohypnol, the date rape drug, in drinks and food. The account in Hall's book is chilling, and the I-Team uncovered some truth to his story. San Antonio police reports indicate there was a rape reported in 2007 in the same quad of condos where one of Dr. Hall's girlfriends supposedly lived. San Antonio police say the condo rape remains under investigation. And Bexar County detectives say Verbeff's assault remains open as well. And although there are some interesting connections to Dr. Hall in the book, law enforcement won't and cannot say if Dr. Hall is even a person of interest. The I-Team thought the similarities were striking and asked him.
Could you, in fact, be the person that's creating this mess for these women?
And that's actually one of the reasons why I got out of my ex-fiance's life. To make sure that they weren't victimizing her in order to get at me.
Dr. Hall says he's been targeted by the same groups. There's mention in the book of a conspiracy by the criminals and by fellow doctors. Dr. Hall says the Texas Medical Board retaliated against him for uncovering the gang stalking. The I-Team confirmed one local hospital suspended Dr. Hall's clinical privileges for 2 months in 2006. In 2007, the Texas Medical Board ordered 2 mental evaluations of Dr. Hall. The first came back normal, but a second evaluation found a probable delusional disorder and ordered psychiatric treatment. And in 2008, Hall's license was suspended, this time when he tested positive for cocaine. In the book, he explains the operatives drugged him with cocaine periodically. Dr. Hall's medical license has since been reinstated.
If you look nationwide, almost everyone that complains of this eventually gets sent to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrists don't look into the technology. They don't do any research into whether or not any of this is possible.
With his book published, Dr. Hall is taking his message nationally. He's appeared on cable TV shows.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hall.
Late night radio.
And our guest tonight, Dr. John Hall,
and even has his own radio program in the works.
There have been several people in my midst, obviously, that have been victimized, but if you look at it on a larger scale, it is a national problem as well.
Dr. Hall says the problem is gang stalking, seeking to victimize innocent women and sully his reputation for exposing them. For the I-Team, Joe Conger, KENS 5 Eyewitness News.
Dr. Hall's belief is that we all face some sort of terrorism in our lives that is mostly unseen and deadly. He contends criminals are tapping into our government surveillance systems to gain access to our lives and minds. As for the alleged rapes mentioned in that story, no one has been charged, but both San Antonio Police and Bexar County Sheriff's deputies say they continue to investigate.